Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Monday. It's December 16th. Today is day 437. Use these updates that we've been doing daily for the last 437 days as a way to give witness, as a way to give testimony to what's been happening in the Middle East, in Gaza, in Israel, in Lebanon, now in Syria. So use this, hear this as a prayer. Pray over these things as news. Use this as motivation to take action, to advocate for peace, an end to war, and an end to violence. I don't know about you. I always find Mondays challenging, but one of the reasons is that over the weekend, the bulk of news coming in, it's not typically good news. And today, again, is no exception. So on this 437th day, last night, I was writing an Advent devotion for one of our partners, and it was about 5:30 p.m. or so, and I just needed to look up something related to the Middle East. And Reuters had reported that in Gaza, at least 53 Palestinians, including journalists and rescue workers, were killed by air and ground forces in the north of Gaza. 53 Palestinians. This was reported last night, Sunday night, in the north of the enclave. An airstrike hit the Civil Emergency Center in the Nusrat Market area in the Gaza Strip. A video journalist for Al Jazeera TV was killed. 5 other people were killed. The video journalist's name was Ahmad Alou. Medics and other journalists reported there was another strike on the Nusrat camp that killed 5 people. So today, I am just devastated to share the death toll in Gaza has now surpassed 45,000 people. So we know that number is a vast underestimate, but the death toll officially today is 45,028 Palestinians killed, at least. 45,028 Palestinians killed over the last 437 days. Those injured is at least 106,962. UNRWA has said that in the past 4 months alone, nearly 19,000 children have been hospitalized because of acute malnutrition. Now, this doesn't mean there are tens of thousands of children who are malnourished, but they haven't been hospitalized. 19,000 have been hospitalized, nearly double the number of cases in the first half of last year. The Palestinian Authority said security forces clashed with militants on Saturday in the occupied West Bank city of Jenin. There was at least 1 person killed. And our Secretary of State Blinken has ended his travels in the Middle East. He said, "I traveled to the Middle East for intensive discussions with partners about the transition from the Assad regime." So he's talking about Syria. He said Syria has the opportunity to have a government that truly serves its people. It's not dominated by a dictator, a religious or ethnic group, or outside power. Blinken emphasized the principles of transparent transition, an inclusive and non-sectarian transitional government, upholding the rights of all Syrians, including women and minorities. He also talked about Syria not being a breeding ground for ISIS and ensuring that any chemical weapons are secured and destroyed. You'll recall that Blinken also had meetings in Jordan with King Abdullah and with Erdogan in Turkey. Sorry, that was a bit of an aside in terms of Syria. Going back to Israel, Israel filed an appeal against the arrest warrants of the International Criminal Court that were issued for Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Gallant. According to the Foreign Ministry, you'll recall there is also an arrest warrant for Mohammed Diaf, who was the Israelis say was killed, but the ICC has not yet had proof of death. Sunday, Israel announced it will close its embassy in Ireland because the Irish government is supporting the South African genocide case at the International Court of Justice. Late last week and over the weekend, this is really, really important. Israel has created a new process for international NGOs. So foreign NGOs have had a very hard time getting renewals for their permits. And the Israeli Ministry for Diaspora Affairs and the struggle against anti-Semitism now have an interministerial team. They're working together, and they're not allowing international NGOs to register because they're saying that there's this new process, and they're saying that they want to stand up against anti-Semitism, but they are having a special process for NGOs that are working to assist the social welfare of Palestinian Arab residents. And so we are already seeing international NGOs that are working in the occupied territories not being given permits to continue their work with Palestinians. In terms of hostage deal negotiations, both Israeli officials and Hamas are signaling that the negotiations are closer than ever. Katz, the defense minister in Israel, commented on reports saying that we are the closest we've been to a hostage deal since the previous one. Sources familiar with the negotiations say that the final number of hostages to be released in the humanitarian phase of the deal still remains unclear, but that they estimate the sides might be able to reach agreements that would allow for the deal to be finalized and carried out within weeks. Soon, U.S. officials, including Adam Boehler, he's the new President-elect Trump's hostage envoy, are expected to arrive in Israel to discuss the agreement. So it sounds like President-elect's team will be meeting with Biden's team as well, I presume, in terms of hostage negotiations. The Biden administration asked Israel to approve U.S. assistance to the PA, the Palestinian Authority's security forces operations, targeting militants affiliated with the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas. According to Israeli officials, they're asking for funding for that. Netanyahu yesterday said he discussed, quote, the need to complete Israel's victory, end quote, in a friendly Saturday conversation with President-elect Trump. So they are in conversation. There have been reports in Israeli news that Netanyahu might be ready to sign a ceasefire deal, but we don't know yet. Moving on to Syria, Israel's government yesterday approved a plan to double the population in the occupied Golan Heights as an attempt to thwart potential threats. It's always been a strategy historically in Israel's history that population centers are a mechanism by which you can provide security, that you can provide a buffer, if you will. And so Israel announced that they're going to increase their population in the Golan. Very quickly, several Arab countries denounced this plan. Turkey described it as a bid for Israel to expand its borders through occupation. Israel also struck Syria 75 times on Saturday, targeting weapons depots and air defenses, according to a UK-based war monitor. And it also began striking again this morning. This is Monday morning. Although Israel has clearly crossed the lines of engagement, Syria is not interested in opening a new conflict. The head of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the rebel group said on Saturday. And the Kremlin today said that they have no final decisions about Russia's military bases in Syria. They're pulling back from several of the front lines, but they're not leaving its two main bases in the country. Satellite images do show Russia moving military equipment at their bases. According to sources reporting, Moscow's military cargo planes are departing towards Libya. There are unexploded mines scattered around Syria that pose a severe threat to civilians. Halo Trust warned over the weekend. Halo Trust is one of the main demining nonprofits. And Israel and Jordan have held secret talks previously to coordinate their Syrian response. Israel reported about this. So apparently it says the talks were held on Friday, so I don't know how secret they could be, but Israel reported that just today. Hezbollah has lost its supply route through Syria. We've been talking about that. The main weapons have been coming through Syria. Hezbollah publicly said in their first remarks since the fall of the Assad regime. Several Western and Arab countries over the weekend released a joint statement calling for the establishment of a, quote, inclusive, non-sectarian and representative government in Syria. And U.S. officials have been in direct contact with HTS in Syria, according to Blinken. Separately, Britain's foreign minister said that they also have diplomatic contact with the group. Several Democrat and Republican lawmakers said it's too soon to lift Syrian sanctions. That was coming from Risch, Cardin, and Murphy, all citing the need to wait for the rebel government's next actions. And Russia's wheat supplies in Syria have been suspended due to the uncertainty over the new government's payment delays, Russian and Syrian sources said on Friday. Just wanted to let you know, as I close, there are several Advent activities this week. I really hope that you will join us. Please, please, please be in prayer for the Tent of Nations. They have their court case coming up on the 18th, December 18th, just in a couple of days. Join us for our international online Advent vigil for Advent Not Arms. Our bishop's letter was released today. Please share that. Write op-eds about that. That's a great opportunity. The Advent Vigil is on December 18th. We have global bishops from Japan, from South Africa, from Western nations as well. Join us for that Advent Vigil live. Bishop Malusi will be joining us, the head of the RCA, Eddie Alaman. We have Orthodox leaders such as Father Thomas Zane and Archbishop Vic Nakazian. We also are partnering with Reverend Dr. Munther Itzhak for his Christ in the Rubble sermon this year, a liturgy of Samut, of resilience. That's later on this week on Friday. So join us for those activities as we continue to stand in solidarity and in prayer as we work and advocate and pray for peace. May God go before us in the name of Christ. Amen.